you also find various sort of local worship cults. This is very, very common, like yakas and nagas and so on. Each village and each town, they would worship their local yakas and their local nagas and things like that. Now today, if we were to go to India, we think of that as part of Hinduism, right? In fact, it's completely different. Right? There's no historical relationship between those things whatsoever. Right? The Vedic religion was something which was brought to India by the Aryan peoples. Right? When they came there, they found people who were already worshipping these yakas and nagas and so on. They're actually quite different religious strands. Right? And so one of the accomplishments of the great Hindu scholars of the Middle Ages, so Shankara and others, was to unify all of those different religious traditions so that all of those local strands, the different philosophical traditions, the contemplative traditions, the Vedic ritual traditions, and so on, all of those different strands, which actually were quite separate, and they weren't seen as being part of the same thing. They were all brought within one umbrella. Yeah? And that synthesis happened around 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th centuries. So it's 1,000 years after the Buddha. And it's that synthesis which we call Hinduism. Right? And that synthesis didn't exist in the time of the Buddha, even though many of the elements, not all of the elements, but many of those elements did exist. Yeah? But they were quite separate things. So if you hear somebody saying the Buddha was a Hindu, then this is just anachronistic. It's obviously, in one sense, the Buddha's family would have been practicing the local religious rites, we assume, right? We assume that in Kapilavatthu, like anywhere else, they probably had their local spirits who they'd do maybe ceremonies for the harvest and so on and so forth. And we assume that his family and that young Siddhartha participated in those things and so on. But this is more to do with just a kind of the relationship with the spirits and relationship with nature and so on and so forth. It's not really to do with being a Hindu in that kind of sense. So this actually is one of the things